Start recording. Is that the one? Start recording. Start recording. I screwed up last week's recording pretty good, so having an expert here is a blessing. So here's how this is going to go. We'll first have each candidate give an opening statement, 5 minutes. I have a couple of questions, and then we'll turn it over to you to ask some questions. So be thinking, right? And Keegan, why don't we start with you? Okay, great. You can stand if you'd like, and if you hold it from the base, we found that the sound.
Okay, hopefully that's about right. My name's Keegan Garrity. I've lived in Logan for almost 20 years now. A classic story of someone who went to Utah State and then fell in love with the Valley and stayed here. I want to thank everyone for coming out. I want to thank Jeff and the party for putting this together. I think it's a great opportunity. I've been a delegate a couple of times, and I always appreciated getting to interact with the candidates and getting to know them better. I think meeting up in person and being able to read their body language and hearing what they have to say is really important. I want to thank Carl for being here because there wouldn't be any debate or discussion if there wasn't a contender. So, and also Carl, he's served on the city council for I think 4 years and the county for the last 7. So a man of service to our community. I have nothing negative to say about him, so I appreciate him being here. And I appreciate you being here. You're also representatives in a way. You're representing your precincts, your neighborhoods. And I hope you take that responsibility seriously. And I hope you talk to your neighbors and tell them what you learned in the debate, or tell them maybe what candidate you're leaning towards. Hopefully it's me. And explain why and get their buy-in, because I think that's important. I ran for city council a couple years ago, narrowly lost. But one of the things that's different about city council is it's a citywide race. There aren't districts. So if you're familiar with Logan City, there's about 1,700 households in Logan City. I wanted to talk to at least one member of every household. That's a lot of time. I haven't done the math to find out how many seconds that is per person in a month period, but it's overwhelming. Here, there are 47 delegates and 9 precinct chairs. I can talk to 56 people, and most of you, I think you can say I've tried to call you or email you or come to your house and talk to you personally. I think that's really important. I want to hear from you. That's the most fundamental part of being a representative, is gathering perspectives, having people contribute to the marketplace of ideas. I don't pretend like I have the monopoly on good ideas. I think our community is better served when there's a diversity of opinion and multiple perspectives. A little bit about my background. Professionally, I hold a director level position at a company called Apogee Instruments. We make high-end sensors for people to do measurements for things related to weather and agriculture growth. And so one of the responsibilities I have there is to oversee budgets and oversee teams. I think part of that experience will help shape how I manage the county budget and things like that. I was talking to one of the delegates, I think it was Michelle, and she was saying, I really appreciate when candidates say what the position is, what you do there, and why you're qualified. So I want to get back to fundamentals. There's a football coach named Vince Lombardi, the Super Bowl trophy's named after, and he would talk to these high-end athletes and he'd say, this is a football, and then he'd proceed to tell them very basic things about blocking and tackling. So the blocking and tackling of politics are their 3 branches of government, and our county is no different. The county council is the legislative branch, so they're responsible primarily for policy, laws, and budgets. Now, the executive branch that's under the purview of the executive, they're responsible for executing the laws and the day-to-day things. And then the judicial branch is for judging the laws or interpreting them and evaluating them. So as a county council member, my role would be to oversee policy and budget, and I want to stick to that role. And so other things in the county and in the community I've served on, I've served as a delegate, served as a precinct chair, ran for city council, served on a voter district committee that evaluated how Logan should do their districting. For the Logan School District, I've served on the dual language immersion committee and offered our advice to how the school should proceed on that program. One thing I found is representatives don't always adhere to the recommendations of communities or their residents. And to be honest, that's part of the reason I ran, is because I've served on committees, I've participated in the process, I've made recommendations, and then I've seen it go the other way, and I thought, I don't think that's how government's supposed to work. So representation is really important to me. I really value what you have to say. My name is not that common in Cache Valley. I'm pretty easy to look up. You can find my email address. You can find my phone number. You can chat with me on Facebook. And those of you that have already done that can attest to the fact that I will respond. So appreciate you, appreciate your time, and look forward to the remainder of the meeting.
Thank you, Keegan. I do appreciate you. My name is Carl Ward. You probably know that. And I've had the opportunity to serve on the county council now for 7+ years. And in that period of time, we've had a lot of transition and a lot of drama the last 2 or 3 years, and which I feel bad about, and which is the reason why I feel compelled to run again, because we desperately need stability in our county. And a lot of what's happened has been a result of newly elected officials coming in, saying that there's a problem, thinking there's a problem, when there really isn't. Instead of stepping back, listening to the employees, listening to the other people who are familiar with what's going on in the county, and then learning, they've stepped in and they have simply said, I want to do things my way. And so they've wiped out layers of experienced people. We found that as a significant issue in this last election. People who were trying to run the election had no experience because they couldn't work with the newly elected clerk, just to put it blankly. And we have had some significant stress among our employees because they feel intimidated by some of our elected officials. Now, it's important for anybody who's elected to understand that we're temporary, but the employees that the county has, they're not. They're the people that know what's going on. They're the people that know what is happening in the county and how things need to work and what the real problems are. And when we come in as elected officials, again, who are temporary, and think that we can come in and just solve all of the problems by implementing our own judgment and our own ideas, then it causes problems. And sadly, we have had some of that drama lately. I passed out a sheet that gives you my background fairly clearly. I've been in public service for a long time. I spent 13 years on the Logan City Planning and Zoning Commission and 4 years as a city councilman, and then 7+ years on the county council. I'm a retired banker. I hope that doesn't turn anybody off. Retired adjunct professor of finance at USU. And don't know how to do electronics at all. In fact, I don't know if I have to learn about what's going on Facebook, I'll never know because I don't do Facebook or any of these other social media platforms. I'd rather talk to people and have them call me and share their concerns and work with me to find the correct answers. I just wanted to maybe give a little educational message here as far as how the county works. In our county code, as Keegan pointed out, it's the council's responsibility to provide the policy for the county. It's the executive's role to implement the policies of the council. And in Utah, most counties are a commission-based government. That means you have 3 commissioners. Back in the 1980s, the commissioners at that time determined that maybe just having that much power in just 3 people was not a good thing. So they came up with a plan to go to a council form of government. And in this way, then, there are 7 people from across the whole county who serve on the council and balance out the decisions that are made that are going to be best for the entire council, for the entire county. And this broad base eliminates a lot of the problems that sometimes exist with somebody who has a specific agenda and wants to push their own personal agenda forward, because you have a check and balance, if you will, just by virtue of 7 people working together. And we have and it's worked really well. Some counties that have this council form have a council, and then they hire a manager who works kind of in the same role as the executive. Salt Lake County has a mayor. Cache County is the only one with an executive. And part of the problem sometimes comes into play from when people forget what their real role is and their real purpose is. And so that's one of the challenges that we've been having. Another thing you might not be aware of, I hope you read your property tax notices, but everybody complains about their property tax going up. Well, I'm proud to say over the last 4 years, I think, we have not, for the county itself, we have not raised property taxes. We have taken in the same level of dollars every year. What that means is, even though the value of your house went up, we did not collect more dollars in tax from you. We lowered the mill levy on that instead, so that we didn't bring in more tax dollars from you. If your taxes went up, though, remember that 70% of your property tax goes to the school district. And they don't necessarily do the same thing the county does. They let the tax dollars go up because the value of your property went up. And the city also gets about 15% of the property tax. But for Cache County, we have been very, very frugal, and we have made sure that that we just bring in the same level of dollars, so the actual percentage taxed against your property has gone down, even though the value of your home may have gone up. And we have worked really hard as a council to be very, very conservative in how we manage the budget and in how we spend these, to us, which are precious tax dollars paid by you. We need to provide services, obviously, but to take advantage of rising home prices and using these extra dollars in a frivolous way, we have worked very hard not to have that happen. I'll just say how very thankful I am for a wonderful, supportive wife. Thank you, Kathy, for being here. She is a lifelong resident of Logan, with the exception of a couple of years we were in the military on active duty, but otherwise, lifelong resident of Logan. And We love Logan. And one of the things that has been beneficial for me being able to serve is that I've maintained good relationships with Logan City's government. And this is, you all are in Logan City, and so being able to work with Logan City and stick up for the council, in the council for Logan City, is important, because sometimes Logan City is viewed by people who are out in the county as the big dog in the fight. And sometimes there's a desire to push more of the burden of regulations and things onto Logan City and onto the citizens of Logan City. For example, I'll give you one example that we'll be working on this year is the Cache County Fire District. Logan City residents pay taxes to fund the Logan City Fire Department. But because a mistake was made several years ago, and the county-wide fire district was the tax burden for the county-wide fire district was put on to everybody in the county. So Logan City residents are essentially paying taxes for Logan City for our fire protection, as well as paying a tax for the county-wide fire protection. And so we're working right now to alleviate that problem and take some of that burden off of Logan City residents who are already paying tax on the to Logan City for our fire protection. These are just some things that are just important for us to work on. And the thing I'm most passionate about is trying to develop a feeling of happiness inside of the county with the employees and with all the elected officials, and to try and diminish the amount of conflict that's here. Every employee that comes to work at the county should feel comfortable coming to work. It should not feel intimidated or threatened. And I want to work really hard to make our county employees smile when they come to work. Because happy workers do better work, right? Mike is one of our county employees. Yay, he's smiling. So anyway, that's why I want to serve again and continue the progress that we've made in keeping our taxes low, keeping our county stable. We've just had way too much in the way of turnover in elected officials, and it's created a lot of problems and angst in the county. So anyway, I appreciate your support very much, and I hope that I have been an honorable and good person as I've tried to serve and do the right things all the time. So again, thank you.
So, Carl, why don't you just hang on to it, because we'll have you answer first, and we'll just kind of go back and forth a little bit. Representative Ward, you mentioned that there's a little bit of stress in the county between departments and the council. For both of you, if we elect you, what are you going to do to change the environment and the relationships with the people that are hired to do the job and who are elected to do the job? Are we going to get 2 more years of the last 2 years if either one of you are elected, or what are you going to do different? Take 2 minutes.
Okay, first, let me explain that you have an elected county council, you have an elected executive, you have an elected clerk and soon to be auditor, you have an an elected county assessor, you have an elected county recorder. All of these elected individuals operate independently. The council does not have oversight of these departments. We don't have the authority to go in and say, okay, recorder, we don't like what you're doing, so you've got to change. We don't have that authority. The only control that we have as a council is the budget. And if we see that maybe they are spending money in a way that's not conducive to good management, then really the only tool we have is the budget. Of course, we can, and we do, meet with these department heads and these other elected officials frequently. And we are assigned to have a department. Each council member works with one or two departments, and we meet with them and talk with their problems and trying to face the things that they're dealing with. But as far as actual oversight and control, we don't have it because they're independently elected people who head these departments. We can't tell them to fire somebody or to hire somebody. It's not, that authority is not given to the council. So what I would do, and will have done and will continue to do, is try and be a peacemaker. Try and find ways to come to a common ground. If something is found to be problematic, talk to the individual involved, talk to whoever maybe has the authority to make changes, and try and negotiate things in a positive and fruitful way without causing conflict and strong arming or threatening or anything like that, but simply to try and do it in the right way.
One thing Carl said about maybe some of the potential problem is someone coming in and thinking they'll be able to fix everything. And I just want to put forth that I'm under no delusion. I'm just one guy. I'm not going to be able to change the culture of something that runs so deep overnight, right? I can only do my part. And from my observation, the conflict that I've seen largely exists between the council and the executive. Now, the executive, he's not up for re-election for 2 more years. So, and I don't think, unless something drastic happens, he's probably going to remain in that position. So I think it would behoove me to meet with him and to understand his perspective better and to start there. I've always found that, especially if you can do lunch over good food, it kind of just lowers the temperature. And I feel that's what we need right now. It's been suggested that part of the conflict has arisen from change or new faces coming in. One solution to eliminate conflict or reduce it is to have a like-minded group of people that have a homogeneous background and don't disagree because they think the same way. Well, there's a quote that says, if 2 people in a meeting always agree, one of them is unnecessary. And I think we do need that banter, that back and forth, even, dare I say, disagreement. What I think has crept into the county right now is contempt, that it's not just enough to disagree. Like someone needs to lose their job or have their salary reduced or something like that. And I just don't wish harm on anyone's family. I think we can disagree better. And I hope that the disagreement part of it continues, but I hope that we can joke and be friends, and that when we call each other out on stuff, it's more of a roast like I would do between my brothers or my best friend, and not one that's of contempt. So that's the small part that I would try to contribute to the animosity that currently exists.
So recently the county spent $60,000 auditing some internal financial processes. What did we learn from that experience? Did we learn enough to justify the $60,000? And would you do it again? Keegan, go first.
Yes, we start with me. So what Jeff's referring to, for those not familiar, is the forensic audit that was directed by the council to hire an outside firm to audit some of the questionable things that were happening in the county. And they did find questionable things. They found some missteps and improprieties on the executive side. There were three main things that I was personally concerned about. There was something about the subordinate-insubordinate relationship, about people who feel perhaps intimidated or coerced or felt like they needed to report on conversations that maybe their superior wasn't privy to. Another concern was a budget item where some of the members of the executive team were spending more than the recommended GSA. For those of you in your jobs, you might have stayed somewhere and received a per diem or seen a recommended amount to spend on the hotel. Now, this isn't policy. I think they're working on making it a policy. It's a recommendation. So there was a recommendation that was exceeded there, and a few other things. One of the other ones was with the budget, that multiple departments were pooling their budget together to make expenditures. Now, was it worth $60,000 to find that out? Unsure. I actually, Grandma requested that amount because I was curious, and I'm one of those people that does read the entire audit. You know, I read all the paperwork for my mortgage before I signed it. It was like 27 pages, but that's the type of representative I'm going to be, right? So the biggest problem, or the biggest learning that I saw out of that, is as I unraveled the situation, one of the accused, I went out and I talked about good food earlier, so I went to Jamba Juice and shared a smoothie with him. And I asked, hey, you were accused of this, what's your side of the story, right? And what he told me is that no member of the council had approached him and asked him about the thing that he was being accused of. And I thought, I think we at least need to start there, of a conversation that maybe could have been solved over a $6 Jamba Juice was $60,000. Now, maybe it's not, and to be fair, sometimes the council, they didn't know everything that the audit was going to uncover, so, right, that's fair. But I think what it revealed to me, and even if maybe people did make an effort to meet with him and he's just not remembering, either way, when I looked in his eye, I felt like he did not get to tell his side of the story. He did not have a public opportunity to share that, and I think what a shame that is, and I think we at least need to talk to each other. It goes back to that contempt that I was talking about earlier. If there's an attitude that this person is always acting on bad faith, that they're a bad person, I just don't think we're going to get anywhere. So my approach would be to give people the benefit of the doubt and investigate and try to remove emotion from it and ask questions about, where did you spend this? Why did you spend this? What was this for? And use the Socratic method to find these things out prior to escalating it to a level that I think perhaps was premature. Thanks.
Thank you. Let me first state that I voted against it, the $60,000. But also, in connection with this audit, there was Keegan mentioned about talking to people, asking them about it, and trying to find out what's going on. And you just need to know some backstory. It took the council a long time just to get approval and authority to be able to use the county's accounting software for us to look into what was going on. We couldn't get the cooperation of those that could make that happen until we finally had to take some strong measures to do that. And what the audit uncovered was, as Keegan mentioned, was there is existing right now a great deal of how's the best way to turn this? County employees feel threatened if they come forward and tell us anything as a council. And so, in fact, one thing the audit uncovered was that employees were told, you can't talk to any of the council members until you tell me first. Or you can't well, that's basically it. You need to get approval to talk to a council member. And so it's been difficult to be able to, as Keegan pointed out, to be able to talk to people and find out what's really going on, because they have been instructed, department heads have been instructed not to do that. And sitting down and talking with all of these other elected officials, Nolan Gunnell is here. He's another one of our council members. He can attest that we do that constantly. And a lot of times, a lot of the things that the audit brought out, we had no knowledge of. We didn't know about it. And even having communications. So really, I mean, I agree with everything you said about wanting to work with people and to communicate well and be forthright in everything we do, and that's what we have attempted to do and will continue to do as council members. But we need to do the right things. We need to do it in the right way. A lot of times, I mean, we can't get together as a quorum that is more than three council members. We can't get together and talk with somebody or talk with ourselves outside of a public meeting. It has to be done publicly. So this last issue that we had with Terrell Warner, she had to bring it up publicly so that it could be discussed openly with the council. And so really, I'm just going to stick up for the council, because these are the most wonderful people I have ever had to work with. Not had to work, had the opportunity to work with. So, and the council is really doing everything that we can to make Cache County a wonderful place to work and to keep the costs low, keep things under control the way that they should be. So, was it worth the $60,000? You know, it may have been, because it did uncover some things that were really, frankly, illegal. And so it did uncover those things that we wouldn't have had any way of knowing otherwise.
Okay. Can I ask a follow-up question? Absolutely. So I'm done with mine. So turn it over to you guys to ask some questions. I got this crappy mic up here, and I think what we'll do is I'll bring this to you, you ask your question, and I'll bring it back to them to answer it. I don't believe I'll need that. Well, if I don't give it to you, the recording won't have it.
Well, I appreciate both of your responses, and I understand the relationship between the council and the executive. At the same time, I couldn't be more disappointed with the actions, relationships, the working situations in the county over the last few years. There clearly has been a revolving door policy with several of the department heads. And regrettably, I guess I'm not accepting the notion that the council doesn't really have some means to address some of these issues. Surely the council is the legislative body. Surely the executor is the executive of the county and implements the laws and the procedures. And yet, in a way, your response is that if the head law executor in the county isn't following the law, well, our hands are tied, and that's too bad. Obviously, that is not totally the case, because in the case of this audit, the council was able to bring some pressure to bear and have an audit conducted. And it is my understanding this audit uncovered far more than $60,000 of inappropriate spending. I do believe that the council can play a part in addressing some of these things, and I once again could not be more concerned with the latest revelation in the paper, the accusations by Terrell Warner. I am not in a position to judge whether they are true or not, but the response by the county executive to me, was just really a lot of blather. Well, it hasn't been in the right form, we're looking at it, somebody's checking, I don't, blah, 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 blah. Well, it seems like to me that as a council, you would take some pretty affirmative action to make sure that coercion and threats weren't a big part of the employment in the county. And I guess I'd turn it back to you and ask once again if there isn't a way for you to bring a little pressure to bear to protect the employees of the county.
2 minutes.
Thank you. You are addressing the frustration we feel. And we statutorily, we can't fire the executive. We can't step in legally to take care of any of these things. I mean, it's not legally, we're not legally able to do that. We have and have put pressure on to try and get these things done. And we sent a letter out. Was that public, the letter we sent? Okay. I won't go into the details. But we did send a letter asking for specifics about everything that was said. And we didn't get a response that answered our questions. What can we do? Well,
I would suspect that some engagement with someone like the Attorney General's office over a hostile work environment
and those things have happened. And but
in years past, I think they have said there is not a mechanism in the county for a recall election. If there's not, maybe the legislative body could look into that.
yeah, well, I mean, there's no need for a recount at this point. But recall, okay, yeah, and so a lot of people have talked about that, but that's something we'll have to look at down the road a little ways.
Is there a
But
mechanism for a recall in the county?
no, there isn't.
Then why not?
Just state law, yeah. Yeah, state law. So there are certain things that we simply do not have the ability to control.
By state law, can there be a recall of a county official?
Not unless there is some egregious breaking of the law. And so, as we sit right now, we're trying to deal with it in the most positive way we can, both for citizens of the county, but also for the employees of the county and everybody involved. Yes, you. Oh.
Can he respond?
So in the case that you're referring to, so one, the county executive is hired by the people. So there'll be an election in 2 years, and people can decide based on what his performance is, right? That's the tough part about being an elected official, is there's 6 other clowns up there with me that the people chose, right? That I have to get along with. And I might think I'm the greatest guy, and they might think they're the, greatest woman for the job. And in a way, they might be right because their constituents voted them in, but we have to learn how to get along. There are cases where it does go over the county's head. So we just had one with the clerk where the clerk was investigated by the lieutenant governor's office on a state matter. So the council, fulfilled their role, you could say, in authorizing the audit. That was within the bounds of their responsibility. Did the audit find anything that required state investigation or escalated it to that level? Well, we still haven't seen anything, and it's been since December. So, you could debate the merits of continuing to picket that, or maybe, think that it's time to move on from that if there were no crimes committed. So, but isn't it great that we do have checks and balances? I mean, that's the main point that I want to make. Isn't it great that the council doesn't have the authority to create a parking law, write the ticket, and determine if someone was parked in an illegal spot? Like, there was a time when there was a judge, jury, and executioner all in the same branch, and I don't want to return to that. So, it is what it is, and I recognize people are going to be unhappy with the performance of some versus others, but I think we have to, respect the law and do what's within our power to fight injustice. But once we've exhausted those extents, I think we need to turn it over to the appropriate authority.
If you could just clarify something for me. Apparently we have the executive branch, but this branch is the one that's in charge of policies, correct? So and I don't understand all the intricacies, but with these employees, I've been in a situation as a nurse and in employment with relationships that are poor between physicians and nurses, where there's intimidation, there's throwing things. And the policy was written immediately when it became an issue within the organization. And so if you're writing policies, wouldn't it be you, this branch, who would write those policies right away to take care of some of those things? And how long would writing a policy to stop intimidation in this branch of government take to develop and write and get, I don't know, do you turn it over to the executive committee to implement it?
So I think just last night there was a council meeting that was discussing county policy. So yeah, it definitely is within the purview of the council to write policy. I think the question in the specific case that was being referenced earlier is, was an existing policy violated? And in this case, there's a question of a harassment policy that does exist, that's part of county code, and there's an investigation, allegedly, at least in the council meeting that was a few weeks ago, a claim was made that it is being looked into and there is an investigation present. So I think the question is, as it fits into the branches of government, was it the policy that is insufficient? Is it the enforcement of the policy that's not occurring? Or is it the interpretation of the policy saying maybe this was or wasn't violated? So in this case, what I would do as a legislator is look at, do we have a policy for this? So one of the things that came up recently is, do we have a whistleblower policy that protects people who make claims against their superiors? And if we don't, let's establish one. So right now, I think that's what we're looking at, and that's the question at hand. What I will say is that the appropriate time to discuss whether or not that occurred is not before the jury of someone's peers for an hour long in a council meeting. Could you imagine if any time an employee had a complaint, even a valid one, a very valid one, even if they were an employee of dozens of years, if they brought forth to air that in a council meeting, how unproductive that was? At the beginning of this meeting, I said, our role is to discuss policy and budget. And so I appreciate your question because it has to do with getting to the heart of policy. But I think in that meeting, what I would have liked to do within the first 5 minutes is said, I'm sorry that happened to you. I feel like you probably don't feel like this is being adequately addressed. And so you're using the avenues that are available to you, and I don't blame you for that. We will evaluate the policy, but right now is not the time to discuss an investigation that may currently be in place and in front of the public. I don't think that's the time and place.
Transparency of what has been done so far. When it's such a public problem, wouldn't there be some forum that would say, okay, this is what we are doing, this is what we've done, this is what we're waiting for, so that people can settle down and have some sense of this is being closed.
Yeah, I think that could potentially be appropriate. We do also have journalists, and part of their role is to inform the public of what's going on and to invite the public to attend those proceedings. But not all investigations are public. Not all the details are made manifest. I know in my job, there's a harassment complaint. That doesn't always go to everybody. And even in a public one, it's not necessarily appropriate for the public to be privy to an ongoing investigation. So I think in this specific case, I don't have all the details, obviously, but I think we need to look at the process and follow that process the best we can.
I guess that's what I'm saying, is not bring out all the stuff that's happened, like even if you didn't know what was happening, where would a person go if they knew there was a problem and they wanted to see
Yeah.
what
They feel like they don't have anywhere else to go.
Yeah, if there's an open trial or a public investigation, it's certainly for the public to know, but that's not always the case. There are definitely confidential matters and closed meetings that occur.
But I was just thinking of the policy itself, not
Yeah. Yep.
not the drama that's gone along with the policy.
Sure.
Okay, first of all, in answer to your question, the council did pass a very comprehensive and detailed whistleblower policy. It is in place, and steps are in place when somebody has been harassed or threatened or done something wrong and it needs to be reported. Then the policy is in place to bring that forward. So, and it's a very detailed and comprehensive policy. We felt like it was needed, and we passed this, is it a year ago, maybe? Or you remember, Micah? Yeah, but anyway, the council has been very, very concerned about this, and those policies were passed. And just to make you aware, 1 second there, just to make you aware, this particular instance, this individual went through all of the right chains to get things done. Unfortunately, the people who were charged with doing those things, taking care of those things, bluntly just brushed her off, and didn't want to have any drama come out of it. And so, and again, I already talked about, the council has sent letters asking for specifics with no response. And so we're doing the best that we can. You had a question.
Yeah, I just was wondering, is the council a full-time position? And do you do other jobs also? Pardon my ignorance on it, but I was just wondering if it's a full-time position and what other things you do with your life.
No, this is not a full-time position depends on how you define that, I guess. We figure we probably spend 20 hours a week in taking care of everything that we need to do. But when I ran for this office 7+ years ago, I didn't know there was any pay at all. I mean, I thought we just ran to serve and serve the public. And so it's definitely part-time. A lot of people, like, well, most of the council have daytime jobs that they need to deal with, as well as trying to fit in everything that is part of the county and the county council. So.
Yeah, that's correct. It's part-time. And when you go over your candidate packet, they do actually tell you the compensation. So must have been a very pleasant surprise for Carl when he got his first paycheck. But they do go over that with you, and they tell you what you can expect there. As far as what I do for fun, I like to snowboard, I play hockey. That's probably not what you're asking, but professionally, I mentioned a little bit in my intro, but I work, I have a director level position at a company where I oversee a team of sales associates and marketers and content creators, videographers, technical writers in moving our business forward.
Thank you, candidates, for this time together. I'm a former county employee. I had a good experience here at Cache County. I worked here for 2.5 years, and I don't want to diminish anyone else's or cast doubt on anyone else's experience. I'm only speaking of my own. I felt respected here. I felt that it was appropriate when my department director requested that we meet or ask approval to meet with council members, and if council member had a concern or an issue, we would make an attempt to set up a meeting, and then the director would determine whether his or her presence was needed or not. And then I really appreciated the opportunity to work through concerns, address miscommunications or any type of issue that might need to be further explored or resolved, to understand that prior to a council meeting. It meant everything to me, frankly, to understand where a council member's position was before attending a scary public meeting where I had to get up and present. They're not always scary, right? But sometimes the hardest part of a public meeting is when you're not sure what's coming at you and what issues are behind the questions and so forth. So pre-meetings are a wonderful thing, and I appreciated when council members would contact our department and attempt to reach out. And so I also found myself sometimes, the only real concern I ever felt was fear of tension in these council meetings between council and executive. I just would kind of cringe at some of that, and I think we're ready and hopeful that that can be in the past. And so my question for each of you is, how can the council and the executive take steps towards resolving as many concerns as possible prior to these public televised meetings? I would even throw out the idea of a different local government that I worked at where there was a pre-meeting, and it was less on the stage, so to speak, and still publicly available to attend, but less in the spotlight, so to speak. And just something to start a path of pre-meeting communication, I think, would be wonderful, and I've benefited from that as well.
I think, yeah, your question's almost a rhetorical one. Like, how do we solve that? I think sometimes you've heard in council meetings, we need to do the public's business in front of the public, and I agree with that sentiment. But I think sometimes it has been used to do what you described as maybe catching someone off guard or unprepared. I think in my business, one of the things that I work with my sales team on is one of their obligations is to report their numbers, right? How are your sales doing this month? And so we have a meeting about that, but I don't ask them once we get in front of everyone really specific questions about, like, well, what about this account that puts them on a defensive track? And I think that's what I've observed as of late. I mean, you can still hold someone accountable. I think that's important. And it can still be public. That's important as well. But why not give someone a chance to prepare? You know, like with my sales associates, I'll say, hey, can you report your numbers? These are the accounts that I'd like to know about. And here's a graph of what I've used in the past. And that could be a good format for what I'm expecting to see in the meeting coming up next week. And if you're unsure, send it to me in advance and we can work through it. So that way we're all on the same page and we're all looking at the same thing. So I think that's more of a teamwork because it feels like, oh, we're collaborating. And the reason I'm being vulnerable and sharing this information, good or bad, sales aren't always good, for example, is because you'll help me be better, or we'll help each other be better, or we'll all contribute to the marketplace of ideas of how we can rise up together. And so I think that's just the cultural thing that I'd love to cultivate, is just that feeling of camaraderie and working together. Because the citizens really don't care about our personal vendettas or our egos. Like, I think right? You guys just want like the potholes filled and the lights to stay on, and maybe for us to get an indoor pool someday. But so like that's the nature of the meeting that I'd like to have, not these. And what, you know, I think the word drama was used. Just, you know, there's a lot of drama. Like, you can turn on The Bachelor, I guess, and if you want drama, like but when you flip on council meeting, I think you just kind of want boring policy stuff, right? Like, maybe that's a good goal to shoot for, is like, let's make things dull and uninteresting again. So, yeah.
The suggestion of pre-meetings is a good suggestion. And in fact, it isn't unprecedented. We used to have those. But I'm just not going to say anymore. Changes have occurred. And I feel bad about them. I think everybody who's been or is part of the county feels bad about those changes. But we do, and we strive to be to work together as a team. In the past, and maybe I'll just be a little direct then, the executive used to sit down with us. We'd go to the UAC conventions, and the executive would sit at the same table as all the council members, and we go to the Capitol and get our pictures taken, and our whole team just together doing that. But that's not how it is right now. We'll let the moderator. Our executive tends to hold himself apart from the rest of the council, and that's really has. And when we have sat down with the executive to talk to him, to discuss maybe projects that need to be done or taken care of, is all we get is this is the way I want to do it, and that's the only way we're going to do it. And so it's been difficult, but the pre-meeting idea, we used to do that, and it used to work very well. Again, we can't meet as a quorum. It has to be with a few council members. We haven't done it in public pre-meetings, but just the chair would sit down with the executive and decide what should we put on the agenda to discuss, and who should we invite to come and discuss that. But that's not happening now, and I feel bad about that. I want to see that change. That's all I can say. I want to work to change that. There was a question there.
Thank you. So if this has been an ongoing problem for a couple of years, and you say you want to change it, why haven't why hasn't it been changed in the last 2 years? Why isn't the council working harder to work with the executive? Because each of you are an elected official from us, the people, so you need to be able to work together. So how are you going to make the change knowing that as of right now, nothing's changing? And it won't change because you are just one person representing the whole county. But what are you going to do to change it and not feel bad about it, but actually make change?
Thank you. I'm on the spot here. First, okay. First, know that I have tried to do that. I have sat down with the executive. I've gone over certain things, certain procedures and roles, but it just hasn't. For some reason, there's just a feeling of animosity between the executive's branch and the council. And yeah, perhaps some of the council members have been a little abrasive, but I think generally, the most of us on the council, and I definitely point to myself, that I have tried to reach out to him, complimented him when something has gone well and he's done something right, and tried to be frankly, to be a friend. I like him, but it's just been difficult because of the some of the, and I can't go into the details. But we sat down with him and went down through a list of things that the council had asked him to do that he didn't follow through with. Comments that he had made to outside entities that came back to us and asked him about those, but he denied them, even though they'd come from outside entities. But even given all of that, I mean, we're all human, we all make mistakes. But I will continue to try to work at gaining his confidence that I'm not his enemy, and to get him to be more convivial with me, and hopefully that'll flow through to other council members too. But yeah, I mean, we're working at it. We have worked at it. We'll continue to work at it.
Well, I'm the new guy, right? So if you just change it, we'll all get along, right? That's what I'm supposed to say, right? No, I'm like I said, I'm under no delusion that will happen. But I have worked with the executive on a couple other projects in the past. I actually first met him when I was running for city council. We attended a Lions meeting, a service club together, and I've known him on a few other projects with some charity work that we've done, and also with the Hispanic festival that took place last year. Had the opportunity to see him speak. So I don't know if you've kind of if you feel this even in the meeting tonight and just the council meetings in general, but there's kind of this feeling that I get that, the executive just beyond redemption. Discussions are futile. He's too stubborn. We can't get through. And maybe I'm naive and this is part of me being new, but I don't feel that way. I think there's room to improve. I think there's room to reach out. I think we can extend an olive branch. I think we can maybe cook up a good meal and invite them over for it. I think that it softens my heart, But yeah, I think there's still room. Have there been missteps and improprieties? Should we justify that behavior? No. You heard earlier that the investigation or that the complaint is brushed off. Do we know that there's no investigation going on? Can we fact check that? I don't know, right? I think that would be something that would be of public interest. is like, hey, let's do a grandma request and see, is an investigation being performed? We don't need to know the details, but let's find that out before we say for certain that that's happening. And I think the deadline still hasn't even closed yet. So could it happen? So that's just an example. I don't want to get back into the details of that, but yeah, I think what my point is that I just think there's room to still get along, and we have to get along. There's 2 more years. Like, we can't just stonewall. That won't benefit anybody.
So I like to get to the why people do what they do. Thank you both for serving. I've often said I kind of wish that we'd all just kind of take our turn sitting in that seat, sitting in those council meetings, having to take our turn as citizens to do this job. And so thank you for being willing to do that. But I'd like to know your why a little deeper. On the surface, Keegan, your why sounds like you've always kind of been a part of civic duties. You've ran for other offices. You've been a part of different committees. And so it kind of sounds like you're continuing that behavior, right? But would like to know deeper why. Carl, you've served for almost 12 years on, between the city council and the county council. And your why that I heard was that you want to provide stability to the council or to the county. And so my question there a little on for you is that what stability do you feel would be leaving by having you leave the county?
So, you guys ever watch TED Talks? I think the most watched TED Talk is Find Out Your Why by Simon Sinek. And in that story, he talks about the Wright brothers and whoever they were going up against. I don't even remember, some more corporate entity of being the first to achieve flight. And how he talks about how once the Wright brothers achieved flight, this other group just gave up. And so I think as I've watched people, myself included, what happens when they lose an election or when they try to do a referendum that fails? Do they pack up their bags and leave? A lot of them do. Most cases, a candidate loses, you don't really hear from them again. I've been involved. If you read Cache Valley Daily, Charlie Shield did a great article on all the things I failed at, and it's awesome. But if Apollo didn't beat up Rocky in the first one, right? The next movies wouldn't have been as good. So you need a good comeback story. But that is my why, is I'm going to stick with it. Those of you that follow what I do, I try to keep the public informed. Occasionally, it's true, I will interject my opinion and editorialize, and I've probably even got upset with someone and said words I regret. So I hope they forgive me for that. But for the most part, I really do try to stay informed. I try to share what's going on and then let other people draw their conclusions. And guys, I'm going to keep doing this whether or not I win or lose this election. Like, Keegan Garrity is always going to be involved in local politics because it's just something that I'm passionate about, especially representation. You know, I grew up in a blue-collar family, and I always heard complaints of like, man, if the higher-ups would just listen to the people on the ground who are actually doing the job, they'd probably have better policies and stuff. So I guess I have a soft spot in my heart for the people who are actually going out and doing the work and getting it done. I want their voice to be heard. I want you guys to be heard. That's why you're getting annoying calls and texts and emails, and I'm showing up on your doorstep because I do want to hear from you. Like, I want to win. That's part of it too. But I'm still going to do that, and I'm still going to solicit your opinions and try to make sure that they're represented on the council no matter what. So that's my why.
Quite simply, I want to continue to serve because I love Cache County. I love the people that are here. I love the standards that we have here in this county. I love the progress that we are making toward dealing with the inevitable growth that's going to happen here. Like it or not, we're going to keep growing. Most of us don't like it, but ironically, between 70 and 80% of the growth in our population is organic. Our kids want to stay here. They want to live here. And so we have to make provisions for that. Most of that is done in the cities and not the county. But what I want to try and do is make sure that the county government does not stand in the way of people being able to get things done. We want to make sure that things are done in an orderly way and in a way that doesn't create harm to anybody else, but we need to make sure that things get done. And so you ask the why. Why am I seeking another term? Because I love this county, and because I've spent the last 7+ years working to get us to where we are now. The last 2.5 years have been exceptionally difficult, and years that we need to try and put behind us and move forward and become a cohesive and functioning Cache County government. We, for years and years, we had just great dialogue and cooperation between everybody. You know, our county clerk was there for years, knew what she was doing, and the county recorder was there for 50 years. He was our recorder, and he knew what he was doing, and he did it right. Our county executives, we had Bruce King, and then Seth Allen, and then Lynn Lemon, and then we had Craig Butters. And all through those executives, they were there for a long time, and things were stable and worked very well in cooperation with everybody else. And even on the council, we've had stability and length, and having this institutional knowledge helps a great deal in setting policy and in making sure that things are done the right way. If you don't know what's in the background or what the history is, it's hard to make a good decision. Somebody wisely once said, if you've ever started to read a book in the middle, it's really tough to find out what's going on. And sometimes when elected officials come in, they're starting in the middle, and they really don't know what's going on. So again, I'm running because I love this county and because I feel that it's extremely important at this time that we have the stability that we need to get through this rocky time.
So, leaving the whole drama with the executive aside, I've also heard from several people that there's projects between the city and the county that affect both areas, that there's just very little communication and collaboration going on. And I would like to hear what you feel like would be able to be improved to get things done that benefit the entire county instead of fighting between like Logan City or the individual cities and legislatures and then the county council.
Can you give me some specifics? What kind of things are you hearing?
The school district is separate from the county, but I've heard several people say that there's just
Unfortunately, that does happen sometimes. But you know, it's really not. A city is a separate corporation. It has a separate government, and the county doesn't have any control over what a city does. And then the city as well can't tell the county what to do in the unincorporated areas. Really, the only control we have deals with the unincorporated areas of Cache County. I think maybe this issue you're talking about with the Firefly Park and things was an issue where Logan City had annexed some land into Logan City, and then once that happens, then it's Logan City's purview as to what they do. The county can't tell Logan City you can't do this on that land, and they can't tell Logan City you've got to go talk to Nibley and work this out. And that's what they should do. And I'll just mention that I sit on the Economic Development Board of Logan City, and so I have some input to some of these things. And I do know that there is a lot of concern about things that affect neighboring communities or the unincorporated county when any kind of development plan is put forward. And so I know that those are concerns. I wish I knew some of the details, and maybe you could email me or tell me.
And it wasn't just that. I just feel like you're saying that there's you don't have a control over that, but shouldn't there just be more communication?
It should be, yeah. But again, can the county step in and say, okay, Nibley City, you have got to go to Logan City and work this out, or Logan, you've got to go to Nibley City and work this out. There are groups. There's a mayor's conference that our executive sits on to represent the county among all the other mayors in the city, and so some of these things could be hashed out in in a forum like that they could communicate and do more. And there's CDBG grants that deal with from cities apply for, and the county can apply. I mean, there's all kinds of things that require communication. And as Keegan has pointed out, and I agree fully, communication is the key to everything. It's the key to all of the problems that we're facing and that we're trying to deal with. And that's what I've been trying to foster and work on, and will continue to do so. So thank you for the question.
Some of the things I've been hearing are examples that I could think of are, there just seems to be a fragmentation. So like Logan just did a new city library. That's an example I think of that possibly could have been a county cooperative. The logic has been used there that there was a referendum on the ballot and it failed for a county library. But I looked, I'm a details guy, so I looked at the history on that. And it was, I think, 14 years ago when that was put on the ballot. And when it didn't pass, it was like 52% or something. So I feel like maybe that's something, if we could have ran that again, people might have been more open to that. Another example I think of in recent history is the waste collection, which hasn't really affected us as much in Logan City because it's still being collected by Logan City. But what the county was essentially doing, for the sake of time, is Logan was basically the landlord of all the waste management equipment, and the county was paying a fee, like a rental fee into that. And then Logan City essentially said, we're going to not have you on this anymore. And so find it on your own. So I think the question you're asking isn't necessarily like, can we compel cities to do that or something? I don't think that's the solution, but I think that's something that perhaps we could have been working on in the background of like, hey, we're a renter paying to a landlord. Like, what should we do about this? We should start thinking about that. So, and again, it's easy to be the guy that says, in hindsight, we should do this. So I'll give you an example of one that could currently be a forward-thinking initiative is the Humane Society. So like our law enforcement spends a lot of time enforcing parking and worrying about pets and stray pets. And I think that's one where, why isn't there a county-wide effort on the Humane Society? I don't know what the solution is, but that's a great thing to start talking about. Or another one is our Parks and Rec department. I think, when moms take their kids to a splash pad, they're not like, okay, family, we are crossing the Logan border into North Logan, and so we need to talk to the North Logan mayor about this. Like, I just don't think people look at that. The other thing is, North Logan recently sent out a survey for a rec center, and I believe Nibley's working on one as well. So we could potentially have a rec center in Smithfield, North Logan, and Nibley, and I think, why isn't that a county effort? Man, what kind of cool building could we do if all the cities contributed? We could have, I lived in a place where they built an amazing rec center with 3 platforms and an Olympic-sized pool, and they had tournaments that were there, and people came from all over. So I think we could potentially build something where residents from, Preston or maybe even as far as Twin Falls and Wyoming come to participate in sports and generate revenue. But I think that's just the type of forward thinking. And again, like I said before, I don't have the monopoly on good ideas, but I know people out there do. And once it becomes part of the discussion, people get excited about it. And once there's buy-in and there's a vision created of this is what could be, then it's a lot easier, I think, for the cities to buy into that rather than to just say like, well, we don't have jurisdiction over them, so we can't make them do a rec center. Like, I don't think that's what I'm saying. It's how can we present an idea so people get excited about it and want to get on board with that and want to collaborate. I think that's what we have an opportunity to do, and that's the exciting part about being a representative, being involved in government and growth. Is a lot of us talk about the bad part of growth, but there's a lot of good that can come with growth too. We can have quality of life things that we might never have been able to achieve if we stayed stagnant. So those are some of the things I'd love to talk about, and I would enjoy conversations about.
Can I just make one brief comment? All of this sounds so good, but what we found is in the state legislature and oftentimes in these kinds of things, the idea comes forward, but then how do we pay for it? And we never consider the question of how then do we pay for it? And the more county-wide things we pull together, then the bigger our county government grows. And I'm one who just feels very strongly that local government should handle local government. Each city should handle their issues, and the county should deal mainly with the unincorporated county. That keeps our county government smaller and more fiscally efficient.
Yeah, I'll just respond to that our default shouldn't always be no, or we can't do it, or it's going to cost too much. That is true, and I think as Republicans we should be fiscally conservative. But I think we have seen in recent history where people are open to something like an open space board to preserve our open spaces, or they're open to a referendum to build buildings for the Cache School District because they weigh the pros and cons and they think this is going to cost money, but will it improve our quality of life? And so sometimes yes, sometimes no, but I think each issue should be examined for its own merits.
Hour and a half, that was pretty good. One more question?
If you don't mind.
And then maybe we can have a closing statement.
Just, do you think of this position as more of you're kind of a representative for the people in your area, or is it more like a trustee where people are just trusting you to make a good decision? And I guess to go along with that, why do you think you represent the people? And what are you doing to make sure you stay in contact with them?
So I think one of the most dangerous things in government is an echo chamber where people start bouncing their own ideas off each other and start thinking that's how it is. So to answer your question directly, why do I think I could represent people is I can honestly say I don't think anyone in Logan has knocked more doors and talked to more residents than me. Maybe Mike Johnson, who ran for city council last time, he did knock a lot of doors, but I've knocked with him on some of those doors, so I think I get at least a half credit for that. So, but I really have talked to as many people as I possibly can, and I still don't know if I have the pulse, but I really do try to gather information. That is really important to me as a representative. Now, your other question of do I see myself as sort of a trustee, I think representation goes both ways, right? There's a push and a pull. I think the push is tell me what you think about this, right? So, and maybe an example to illustrate that is a few years ago there was a census and the boundaries for this seat were realigned. I put a map on the back of my flyer to show kind of how the difference, it changed about 6 precincts. There used to be only, I think, 1 on the west side, and now there's 6. So an example of that might be, did representatives reach out to the new areas when that occurred, right? That would be one yardstick for measuring the outreach. Now, there is accountability on the other side, too, to attend meetings and to write our council members. So as a council member, I expect both, right? I expect for people to be proactive and pay attention and read the paper and try to attend meetings and get informed, but I also will make an effort, and I hope I've shown that already before I've even been a representative over the last 4 years. You know, if you look at, I have a Facebook group, and there's more members on that Facebook group in my group than there is the Cash GOP. Burn, Jeff. No, just kidding. That wasn't my intent at all. And see how I saved it for the very end before you cut my mic. But no, I mean, I think I would give up if the momentum had stopped, and I'm like, man, I'm not getting traction anymore. But what I found is my message, the louder the megaphone that's on it, the more people that it attracts. So I think that really resonates with people. If I can participate, I can post here, I can ask questions, and maybe Keegan's not even paying, maybe he's just the moderator in these discussions. But they can be had, and I want to hear them, and that's something that is going to continue. That's not an empty promise. That's something that I have done and will continue to do.
In answer to your question, that's one of the reasons why I feel like I can represent District 1, which is Logan City, a third of Logan City, because I know Logan City. I know the people who are in Logan City government, and I dialogue with them a lot, talking about the issues and the problems that are occurring in Logan City and how what the county does affects the people I represent. Because some of the decisions that the county can make have a negative impact on us who live in Logan City. And so in answer to your question, I represent the citizens of Logan City. I have to also look at the county overall because we have issues come up that affect the entire county. But primarily, I need to watch out for the people in my district who I represent, who elected me. And that's my primary focus. Sorry, but I don't do Facebook. And so I have no idea on... Good. I don't even know what he's talking about with megaphones and things like that. I have no clue. So I just enjoy it when people will call me or email me and say, we're having a problem here, I'm concerned about this, and then I can look into it and respond back and in a personal manner, in a personal way. So thank you for the question.
The question is just short. It's just a yes or a no answer. I'd just like to know what you think of having, at the council meetings, maybe a 5-10 minute opening where citizens can make comments.
You're there every single council meeting.
I know, an opportunity to say anything. So, would you be in favor of that, both of you? You could just say yes or no, I don't want to prolong the meeting.
No, and that's from experience being on the Logan City Council when we did that. I know.
Sorry, Mom, but I'm going to say, hell yeah, we should. I want to hear from people. And you've even seen in council meetings where they say, we're going to bypass the current, I can't remember if they call it the law or the public hearing, but no, we don't do that. We want to hear from people. And even people who just need to get it out and vent, I'd rather have them vent it in public than go into their secret corners and vent it. I think that's how problems fester. So yeah, I can take it.
Okay, now we're done. Why don't we, well, wait a minute, sorry. You want to give them a closing statement? 2 minutes each? Or are you done? Yes. We got a yes back here.
I don't know.
No, so the no's can go, and the yeses can stay. You want to do it that way?
We'll do 1 minute.
1 minute, okay. Carl first.
1 minute. Thank you for being here, and I hope that you'll support me in keeping some stability in our county. Thank you.
Guys, I've reached out to most of you. You know me, you know how to get a hold of me. I think this will demonstrate how much I've been paying attention. Nancy, you must be an alternate delegate in 22 that probably happened this week, and you're probably taking Seth Humphrey's spot. Or maybe Tim Royer. Yeah. So anyway, I really have reached out to everyone. I'll say one thing. There's a company we do business with, and on their wall, they have a slogan that says, "Think like a scientist, work like a farmer, dream like a child." And that's the type of representative I want to be. Thank you.